Tala Bedat. You're listening to the Women Power Podcast, a subsidiary platform to the Women Power Summit, the largest event in MENA, with the aim of empowering women and helping them achieve their absolute highest potential. Each week on the Women Power Podcast, you will hear honest, vulnerable, authentic, real conversations from inspiring women. These women will share their experiences and stories into what it takes to build a successful business and career. The podcast will share insight and inspiration and hopefully inspire action and lead change. Side note, even though we are all at home, we wanted to bring you valuable content. So this episode of the podcast is brought to you over Zoom. Please bear with the sound quality. Thank you. Born to a Bahraini family, Sumaya was raised and educated in Sweden, where the initial seeds for her passion about women issues was planted. Currently, she is a lecturer at John Copping International Business School in Sweden and is in her final years of the PhD journey, where she focuses on female entrepreneurs in Bahrain. Sumaya's research explores different aspects of female entrepreneurship, such as how divorced women navigate themselves into entrepreneurship and masculinity and entrepreneurship. Sumaya has conducted over 77 interviews with Bahraini female entrepreneurs, which is over 200 hours of conversations that have been transcribed in over 2,000 pages of research and analytics. Welcome, Sumaya. So I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. So I'm very excited.
Likewise, I'm very, very excited to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to talk about how we first met. How did we first meet?
Yes, I remember. Actually, I approached you for my interview, for my research, and you were one of the fastest people to respond to me. And it was such a pleasure to actually sit with you in the coffee shop at Al Ali Mall and listen to your incredible story.
Not only that, but we got this amazing opportunity to work with you in the Women Power Summit. So you were there as part of one of the biggest experiences of my life. And here we are again, a couple of years later, trying to find out what's been happening with you since then. So before we begin and get into your research, which I'm really, really excited and incredibly curious about, and in all our conversations, I've tried to not know anything so that I can discover it on the podcast. So why are you in Sweden?
Well, okay, that's a bit long story, but to keep it very short, I was raised and educated here in Sweden. My first years here in Sweden as a child were very, very difficult and hard. I wasn't trying to fit in. I just wanted to be accepted for who I was. I think my parents had raised us with very, very strong values, and I was very proud of who I was and very proud of my family and my culture. So I didn't want to really fit in. I just faced a lot of challenges of being accepted for who I was. The fact that I was wearing hijab didn't make it really much easier, like awful experiences as a child to have few people walking by you and spitting, or an old woman would come and say, why are you wearing that piece of thing over your head? Your God is not here, take it off. All these kind of comments in the beginning, and you don't really have the language or the courage, or even you don't know, because we were raised like you're not supposed to respond or be rude to an older person or an adult. So to experience that at a young age, when you don't have the language, when you don't really understand what's happening, was really, really hard. Especially that we, in the beginning, were living in very small kind of cities. And then when I started to master the language and we moved to a bigger city, things got much, much better, but I always had to educate myself. I really needed to have the answer. I needed to give answers, not why I'm doing this because God said so. I really needed to have a really good answer that kind of talked to their way of thinking. It was really hard because then you end up being on the guard all the time, trying to be the best person, trying to show that I'm not what you think or the media that you listen to or the movies that you watch is not really the full story. There are other parts, there are different aspects. So you become, or at least I became, very, very tense, very, very, very defensive, I think. And this is something I didn't actually realize until I finished high school. We have here in Sweden that when you finish high school, you need to do like a thesis. And for the last kind of 2 years of my high school, I had this religion teacher that we had a lot of heated arguments because I didn't really kind of agree with everything that she taught us. And I remember that we had the option to choose the topic and we had the option to choose the teacher who's going to supervise us for this thesis. And out of all the teachers I had, I decided to go with her. And my classmates are like, Sumaya, are you crazy? There is a lot of points going to this thesis and you're going to go with her. You've been having such a 2 years of arguments. What are you doing? And to me, like, okay, I will take this challenge. I either fail or I'll get a good mark. And I got the highest mark. So that was kind of the end of it. I had the highest mark. And you know what? Now that I'm telling you this story, another thing that's a tradition here in Sweden, when you finish high school, you have these like a sailor white hats that you wear for the celebration of your graduating from high school. And usually our classmates would write something in the hat. And I had one of the classmates, his name was Gustav. He wrote to me in my hat, Sumaya, you're my first encounter with a Muslim. You've done well, keep up the hard work. And to have a message like this, and that to me was like a happy ending of a really long struggle. I wasn't trying to fit in. I was just trying to explain things so that they can accept me and people like me for who we are. So when that was done and I got accepted to University of Bahrain, I'm not exaggerating if I said like it was the feeling of going to Harvard or being accepted to Harvard, because I just could get out of here, just go and be me. I don't have to be something just to prove to somebody who we are. I just could be me. So we left and I never thought I'll come back to Sweden. I actually thought I don't want to put my foot back to Europe again because of these experiences that I had. And then moving on, maybe 10 years after being in Bahrain, so I got married and I had kids. Through my work, I had the opportunity to actually travel to Ireland to do my master's and to work for 2 years in Ireland to gain international experience. And at the beginning, when I got this opportunity, I'm like, oh, should I accept this opportunity? Do I really want to go there? Do I really want to put myself through that pain again? So I was really nervous when we traveled to Ireland to really kind of relive those old memories. But I was so pleasantly surprised with how the Irish people were so nice, so welcoming. I never felt that I wasn't accepted there. It was really, really wonderful experience to be there. And it kind of helped me to open up and maybe heal or forget or give myself another chance to maybe, if there are any opportunities to travel in Europe or live in Europe, then I would be open for that possibility. But we returned to Bahrain after that and we thought we're going to stay. So we bought a lot of new stuff, thinking like, this is it, we're staying now. And then 2 years into that, after we returned, actually 1 year into that, I returned back to my old job and I felt throughout the 10 years before that, I've always felt fulfilled through my work. It was such an amazing feeling. I was so passionate about everything that I did. I had amazing managers who gave me the space, who gave me the room to be creative, to be innovative, to try new things, to learn new things. And then having come back, done new things for a year, and then for the second year, I started noticing like I'm just doing repetitive, very simple jobs. I have done so much more, and I felt so lost. I felt like I can't do this. I don't want to be like many people that just go to do the work just for the sake of money. I needed to have this passion. So that's when I actually met with a coach, and I was venting for 3 sessions about what I was feeling and what I had been through, and I wasn't so happy in where I was. And so after 3 sessions, she told me, Sumaya, you know what? You've been venting now for 3 weeks. For the next session, I need you to come back with a plan. So I left that session, the coaching session. I'm thinking, okay, what should I do? What should I do? And for some reason, I've always been, whenever I've been in situations where I needed change, I needed to do something, I always looked at the website, the university website for Jönköping International Business School. So the university that I'm in now, I've always kind of went back to their website. Like when I tried to do the masters or were trying to see which master programs I could do, I looked at their website. So anyway, on that day, after finishing the coaching sessions, I logged into their website again. And as soon as I saw the ad for the PhD position, I read it and it was like, you know what? It's tailored for me. I really feel it. Like, this is it. This is my solution. This will take me out of my misery. So we sold everything again, took the kids out of the schools, and moved to Sweden.
Wow, what a story. I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like, feeling not being yourself in a place, especially when you're growing up and when you are trying to figure out who you are and going through all these phases of, the teen phase, which is trying to understand your identity, how you fit in the world. And I guess the only experience I can relate to is I went to Copenhagen with my mom on a trip, and I just felt so brown. Like everybody was blonde and snow white. Even their complexion was like a very light shade of white. And we stood, like, I don't remember going to any country and feeling the way I did in Copenhagen. I felt so different, so much shorter, even though I feel I'm quite tall, but short and brown. And I've only felt that for 2 weeks, so I can't imagine what that was like for you. And I love that University of Bahrain is like going to Harvard. That's such a positive and incredibly wonderful way of looking at going to college in Bahrain when people are trying to escape and go experience their university years out of Bahrain. So I'm gonna segue into your first job, and what did you learn from your first job?
Okay, so traditionally here in Sweden, when you turn 16, you are actually allowed to work and earn money and salary, and you can work on the weekends. So as soon as I turned 16, my first job was cleaner at a hotel. So as soon as I turned 16, I searched for different positions and I went for the interview. I got the job, and only then I told my parents that I have managed to get this job. It's a weekend job that I can work on, and I will be able to have an income. And my mom's reaction was like, what? My daughter is going to be a cleaner, and how can you do that? But I mean, you have to do what you have to do, and it's socially accepted here in Sweden to work as a cleaner. So in the beginning, she was like maybe panicking a little bit, but then after a while, she's like, when she saw me sleeping sometimes on the weekend, she's like, aren't you going to work? So I think she accepted that towards the end. So that was my first job with like some real income. But if you're asking me for the first job that kind of helped me with my career, it would be when I was in Bahrain. So I was at the university, and then there was a summer holiday, and my dad was working at this company, and I managed to get a summer job there. After completing my summer job, they offered me to stay and work as an administrative assistant, which was really nice. So I negotiated with them that I'm still at university. How can we work out? And we agreed. It was actually very long working hours there. It's like 10 working hours. So I managed to schedule in sessions after each other during close to my lunch break. And I will drive there, do sessions after each other. So no breaks, no nothing, and then coming back to work. So it was really tough period. And thinking about it, I've always been studying and working and studying and working and doing a lot of other things.
So a cleaner, wow, because yeah, you don't really hear a lot of stories from women from this part of the world having jobs like that. And I really admire you for that. My first job was a shop assistant, just working the sales floor. And I worked in London, and I remember when other Khaliji women would come to the store, they just look at me like, what are you doing here? You know, and I did what I needed to do to get ahead and to learn, which included sweeping the shop floor, hanging things, steaming things, picking things up. And so I completely admire anybody who is determined to make their own pay and to get ahead and to kickstart their career. So why did you choose the subject of female entrepreneurs to focus on, and why especially female entrepreneurs in Bahrain?
I guess one way I could look at it is maybe I had unfinished business here in Sweden because I just decided to leave everything and just, start a new life. And just like I mentioned earlier to you, the topic that I did for my thesis, for my school thesis, high school thesis, was about women in Islam. And then the topic, the interest in women and all that, what has pushed me during my upbringing. You know how I mentioned that I just wanted to leave everything and then just be me. So I didn't kind of take that topic or subject up ever again. And then the only first time I kind of even thought about it was when I was thinking about, okay, I need to submit a research proposal to get to this position. What should it be about? And at the same time, I had just completed a collaboration proposal between the university I was working at for the president with the Supreme Council for Women. So I had a deeper understanding of the national strategy and the issues that being raised in Bahrain. So that was another trigger for why to focus on women. So I kind of restarted my interest, my old passion came back to life by doing this collaboration proposal. And also the fact that it's in Sweden, kind of the first thing I thought about was my school thesis. And it's like you're connecting the dots in your life. And then the entrepreneurship part, because application was for business administration, and there is a lot happening in Bahrain for entrepreneurs, females and males. I thought that was interesting to capture that and show through my thesis what's happening in a country like Bahrain.
This podcast is brought to you by the Women Power Summit. The Women Power Summit is an annual event that hosts more than 2,000 guests to listen, learn, and network with more than 100 plus speakers and industry leaders. The summit creates space for growth, learning, discussion, and collaboration, with the means of creating a space where women can support each other, ask questions, be curious, and be inspired. So there's a few things in that interested me that I just want to pull out. You had a life coach, so you hired somebody to help you figure out what you wanted to do in your life?
She wasn't really hired. She was a colleague of mine who was studying to become a coach, and she needed someone to practice on. And I'm like, you know what? I'm here. You can start coaching me and see how it goes. And she turned out to be a very, very amazing coach and helped me so much to go through that phase successfully and get to a much better place. I wouldn't have been here without her, so I will be forever grateful for her session.
Was that helpful for you to have somebody that could guide you?
You know, what I realized was the fact that we in general are not good at listening to each other. We don't give each other the room or the space to listen to somebody without giving advices, without giving recommendations, just listening, active listening, without judging the person. So I think that's what coach does. They just, or what coaches do, they just listen and ask more questions to provoke your thinking and keep listening. And I think that's key. You need to have this dialogue either with yourself and be able to ask yourself these hard questions and try to answer them. Sometimes it's hard to do it on your own. So if you have somebody there just listening and is able to kind of force you to think about things that you may be trying to push at the back of your head or challenge you, I think, why not? To me, that was really, really helpful.
So when you saw the ad for the university, can you describe the moment that you felt something? Was there a voice inside of you? Or what made you so sure this was the stepping stone for you?
Before traveling to Bahrain and living in Bahrain, so in my teenage age, I feel I used to be very much connected to my feelings, to my body, what my body was saying, what my gut feeling was telling me. And it happened to me on few occasions that I really, really felt it with my whole body, with my whole, all my senses, with my deep inside my soul. You really feel like this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I can do. This is what I want to be. And it's very amazing and strong feeling that I didn't feel for a long time. So I really wanted to make it happen because it felt so right. I remember maybe the earliest time before that I felt this strong feeling was in relation to my job at the university. So that was almost 12 years before that. So for 12 years, maybe I never got such a strong call, such a strong feeling in my guts that this is the right thing. So when I got this interview for the university, I remember walking through the building, and then after I finished the interview, I felt that I really want to be here. This is it. And during that time, I've been to different positions. So I have been interviewed to different companies, to different places, World Trade Center and all of that stuff. But this is the place where I felt like this is it. And I went home and just said to my mom, please, can you pray for me? Like, this is where I want to be.
Did your husband or your family think you were crazy?
Yes, I guess they thought so. But also, I'm very fortunate and lucky that I have a family and my husband has been extremely supportive.
Sorry, I need a minute. That's actually a very powerful story, Sumaya. I have to tell you, like, you don't hear these kind of stories, and it's so unlike us. Like, we are so calculated, and we have so many hoops to jump through, and we have dads and fathers that worry about us, and we have to explain to them, and we have husbands who are worried, and we have our kids, and to just pick all that up and sell everything and move without a commitment is wild. So, which interviews were impactful to you? I know you interviewed more than 77 people, and we mentioned this in the introduction.
So, my approach to the interviews that I've done so far is asking people about their life. So I ask them about the high points in their life. I will ask them about the low points, turning points, this kind of questions about their childhood, their upbringing, important dimension or aspect about their values. So, it's a lot of deep, sensitive questions. And if you're going to talk to somebody, a stranger, over the phone or over Zoom or Skype, to me, it didn't feel right because I felt I need to establish this trust, and this trust that I was trying to build only worked through face-to-face interaction. So maybe now people are more kind of familiar or used to use Zoom or WhatsApp calls or whatever. But to do a 2 or 3 hours interview over Zoom, asking deep questions about their life and talking to a stranger didn't feel right. So I was fortunate enough that I managed to get some funding from the university to actually be able to travel. And many other times I was actually trying to schedule interviews during my holidays in Bahrain.
So, what were you trying to find out with your research? What were you on the quest to understand?
According to some reports, family businesses make up 80% of the private sector. And it's known that once the family business reaches the third or fourth generation of succession, it is less likely to succeed. It is less likely to be able to maintain the business, and the business could fail. And the scary part is a lot of our well-established family businesses are in that phase now. They are in the third and fourth generation, and we have no research about family business. So that's why I think it's very, very critical to bring attention to family business in the context of the Arab world and try to really understand it, to try to really contribute and help these businesses to continue, because they are the backbone of our economy and they're going to be the future of our economy.
This podcast is brought to you by O'Brien Hill. O'Brien Hill is a leading communications agency focusing on public relations, event management, and marketing. It's made up of a fantastic group of creatives in the design and PR fields. The agency first came to life in 2010 as my brainchild. Our creative consulting services were in demand in the UK after our online publication Sketchbook became an overnight success. Much like a proud mama, our agency's namesake is attributed to the place of its inception, Notting Hill. It's now 10 years later and we're one of the leading communication agencies in town, and we as a team are incredibly proud to be working on this very podcast behind the scenes. Check us out on www.obayandhill.com. So you already mentioned something which I thought was very interesting, which is there are women that don't even have the resources, but they found a way. I find that pretty amazing. What did you find amazing? What were you like, wow, I did not see that coming, or this is so interesting?
What I found very interesting is that, so in my interviews, I have a very diverse group of women from different ages, different background, different class, family business, non-family business, and a range of different interviews. So it was interesting to see that those with limited resources and would tend to kind of say, like, I don't have the family name, I don't have the money, I don't have the background. No one in my family have done the business before. I'm the first one doing that. And then you have on the other side, the women who actually come from family business. So they have the family name, so to speak. And they say, yes, I have the family name, but that only account perhaps for maximum of 5%. I have to do the 95%, the other 95%, the remaining 95% is my hard work, is me knocking doors, is me trying, is me convincing. And it was also interesting to see that even if these women were part of a well-established family business, they were not necessarily accepted to be part of the family business. And many of them had to kind of go and establish their own business and become very successful, and then perhaps either be invited or could join or insist of being part of the family business. So I think the family business, family name dimension was very interesting to observe between the different groups. and that you don't really need to have the family name to make it. It might help you with 5%, but it's all about having the determination, working hard, making small successes every day throughout the business establishment, and then be able to be accepted. But if I go back to your question about what shocked me the most, so what I do is I have to kind of develop 4 different research perspectives about female entrepreneurs in Bahrain. So the first one was the legitimacy that I have mentioned quite a lot now. But the second one is about divorced women and how they manage to navigate themselves to become entrepreneurs. And the reason I thought that this topic was interesting is because a lot of the literature that I have read about women in this part of the world state that we are part of a patriarchal society where men have the final say in the economy and the private life. And without the man in your life, women, without the man in the life of the woman, they will not be able to make it as a successful entrepreneurs. But then doing these interviews, so I didn't start because I didn't approach people because they were divorced. But throughout my interviews, I realized that a good proportion of the women that I was interviewing were actually divorced. And this kind of triggered the question for me, okay, so the man that is kind of mentioned in the literature is not there, is non-existent, and still I have successful female entrepreneurs in front of me. So how did they manage to do it without the man? And this is why I became interested in this topic. So what was shocking for me in this group of women that I interviewed was that, yes, and I guess this is no surprise, that the divorced women in this part of the world experience a lot of stigma. What shocked me the most is that they get the kind of most difficult and hard time is from other women. So other women would consider them perhaps a threat, that they will steal their husbands, or they will be told that you're not welcome to my house anymore, and even be treated as if they are carrying a virus or something, like as if divorce is contagious. So that was very surprising and really hard for me to understand. How could other women treat vulnerable women like that? And I still can't get my head around that.
What was her secret sauce, or what was the link between all these women that were divorced? What drove them to ensure they succeeded after
So
their
our
divorce?
preliminary findings indicate that when people go through life-changing situations such as divorce, they may experience a sense of emptiness. And perhaps I could associate it now with the COVID-19 situation. So losing your job, staying at home, you're not allowed to meet people, you've lost your sense what used to give you meaning in life, from working, from meeting people and all of that. So you go through a phase of feeling empty, and you may be feeling lonely, and how can you fill this time that you have because of this change? And I think that could be the same with divorced women, because they're going through this life change and there is a lot of emotions and things have changed, and perhaps being even rejected. So they are experiencing a phase of emptiness, loneliness. And what some women tend to do is, by filling this emptiness with other socializing activities, meeting new friends, having fun, going out, trying to find another spouse, all of that. So that's their main purpose, that's their main focus of perhaps escaping from the pain that they're going through. Some would go an even another level of filling this emptiness by trying to self-develop. So a lot of qualifications, educations, taking on new courses, focusing at work, doing new things. The kind of the third level of this process, the kind of, if you go even a step further, some tend to go through a process of trying to discover the self. Who are they as a person, as an individual? Because remember, most of women in our part of the world, they are part of the family and they marry at a very young age without having really figured out who they really are, and then start their own family by getting married and soon thereafter having kids. So maybe they have never been exposed to the fact, okay, so who am I? What do I like? What's my passion? So that's perhaps the kind of the third highest way of filling this vacuum. Again, taking it to the current situation of coronavirus. You have the group of people who may be taking the time to cook, to Netflix, to do other hanging out with kids, which is really nice and which is really good, and this is what we need. But there are those who do that, but in addition to kind of sign up to different courses, find out online courses, self-development activities. And then perhaps there is a third group now who is taking this space, time of reflecting about life. What do they want to achieve? What do they want to change? So this is kind of, I'm just trying to kind of make it more relevant to everyone else. And that life change, it doesn't have to be necessarily divorce, but it could be a situation that forces you to get out of your normal routine and causes some frictions in your sense of meaning. So those who focus on the first level of filling this emptiness, this meaning that they have lost, they, as soon as they find somebody else who is, they find as the person who kind of give them a sense of meaning, a person who is good to them, a person who is, they feel is their companion, they can replace quickly this emptiness that they're feeling, but they do not become entrepreneurs. Those who go to the second or the third level of filling meaning, they are kind of engaging in new activities that leads them to establish a business, or if they have a business, they grow it.
So what piece of advice would you give to young female college graduates who want to become entrepreneurs based on your research?
My advice would be to start at a young age, expect to fail, but also expect to build a lot of knowledge that you can't easily gain from reading books or getting some degrees. It's more the tacit knowledge that you gain by doing things and learning on your own. And also, I would advise them or suggest that they engage in different activities. So engage with sports, engage with artists, musicians, different activities, so that you are always surrounded with people from diverse backgrounds that can inspire you, and ask yourself the hard questions always, continuously. Who am I? Am I this person? And set some goals and work towards those goals. Just embrace this amazing period in your life. So start at a young age, ask yourself the hard question, and surround yourself with a diverse group of people.
Thank you, Sumaya. This has been amazing. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for doing this with me and taking time away from your work and your family to spend this time to just share your story. And I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening to an episode of the Woman Power Podcast. And thank you for downloading and streaming our podcast every week. If you love what you've heard, tag us on Instagram and follow the Woman Power Podcast and Woman Power Summit account for more information on our next episode. Please leave a rating review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other women discover the show. That's it from me. See you next week.